Welcome back to another episode of Rock Boys Football. Oregon State heading on the road, playing the Oregon Ducks. Now, look, how competitive is this football game going to be? Well, if we get the same version that we've seen from Oregon State and we get the same version that we've seen from the Oregon Ducks, I don't think this game's going to be all that competitive, but I will say this. I still think it's a really important game. I think there's a laundry list of things that you want to see Oregon continue to do well, but I think there's a select few storylines, players, and things that you want to see Oregon clean up before they go on the road and play Penn State next week. And the way I look at it, this is that last tune-up game to kind of dial everything in so you're playing your best football on the road next week against Penn State. Want to get into the things that I don't want to ignore the things that Oregon's doing really well, but I do want to focus on the things that I want to see from this Oregon team get cleaned up before we go on the road play Penn State. Before we get into it, as always, to the Oregon fans, appreciate you guys. And how about this for a little bit of a primer question? What players, what things do you think are most important for Oregon to get right going into that game against Penn State next weekend? And I ain't trying to overlook Oregon State, but that's just the nature of college football. That's the nature of being a good team like Oregon. You know, there are certain games that are tune-up games, and then there are certain games where you got to play your best football. And that's I think, a point of emphasis for Dan Lanning is, hey, how can we ensure that we play our best football when it matters most? It's a big storyline for Oregon winning a national championship in 2025. Would love to hear from you guys. As always, appreciate the Oregon fans. The support this fan base continues to show the boys is amazing. If y'all do enjoy the content, consider subscribing to the channel. Without further ado, let's get into it. I want to start with this Oregon defense, where that's probably where the biggest concern lies, because you look at this Oregon offense and say, all right, we're scoring 51.5 points per game. That's number 3 in the country. 8.5 yards per play. That's number 3 in the country. 7.3 yards per carry. That's number 4 in the country. 10.1 yards per pass. That's number 10 in the country. Not giving up a sack all year. There is, I'm not trying to be like too much of a sunshine pumper. There's really not been much that Oregon has not done well on the offensive side of the football. It's been nearly just about as perfect as you can ask of it. The defensive side of the football, look, it's been pretty dang good. Like, there's a lot of good that's coming from this Oregon team early in the year. I think the secondary is astronomically better than what we saw last year. And I look at how Oregon can match up against some of the best athletes and wide receivers across the country and just say it feels different. It feels like we have a better chance of dealing with the wide receivers at Ohio State, or dealing with the wide receivers at USC, or dealing with the wide receivers at Texas. The secondary has been great. The safety play has been great. Boundary cornerback play has been great. How about the linebacker position? This might be, maybe outside the secondary, this might be the most improved unit on this football team. And what's funny about it is I'll put my hand up and say I was banging the table for Oregon to go out and add an off-ball linebacker in the portal. Dan Lanning was pretty damn confident that, hey, we like the guys that we have, and we're not going to go shopping. And they didn't. You've seen Bryce Betcher take a step. You've seen Devin Jackson take a step. And most of all, you've seen Jerry Mixon take a step. Heck, I don't think there are many linebackers in the country that are providing more value and playing better football at the linebacker spot than Jerry Mixon. And so I just want to see that continue against Oregon State. The one real thing that we want to see cleaned up, and we're going to talk about this a lot over the next couple of weeks, because there are not a lot of things that I think can hold Oregon back. There's one storyline. It's the middle of the defensive line. Amari Washington's been awesome. I think he's been one of the better interior defensive linemen that you've seen in the country. I think Bear Alexander has played some quality football as well. My biggest concern is when it's not Amari, and when it's not Bear Alexander, when it's a guy like Tyone Gray, when it's a guy like Terrence Green. I feel like there's a bigger drop-off than what you would want. And this is one of the most important storylines when you want to be a national championship team, because I'll say this, go look at the past teams that have won national championships. They've had studs, right? You look at Ohio State last year, that all 4 of their starters got picked in the NFL draft. Michigan, very similar story. The Georgia team's very similar story. They've all had guys. But what has separated good teams from great teams, and this was a separator for Oregon last year, I don't think they had enough depth on the defensive line. That's still a little bit of a concern for Oregon in 2025 as well. Now, here's the optimistic lens of it. They're young. Like Terrence Green and Tyone Gray, Aiden Breland. This is a young defensive line from a depth standpoint. When you're dealing with young players, specifically along the lines of scrimmage, especially guys who haven't played a ton of football yet in their careers, guess what normally happens? They get better as the season goes on, right? And I ain't really buying Oregon doesn't develop players, because look at what Amari Washington's doing in year 3. Like, Oregon can develop these guys. I ain't got no question about player development. The question is, how quick does the development take place? Because I think you're looking at Tyone Gray, I think you're looking at Terrence Green. I think you're looking at Aiden Breland, specifically when it comes to doing some dirty work, stopping the run. It's leaving a little bit to be desired. And it was something that Oregon hasn't been tested on until they played Northwestern this weekend, because that Northwestern offensive line, that group can bang. That is a very quality Big Ten offensive line. They don't have a ton of other things that I like about them. It's a good offensive line. And you didn't feel great about what you saw from some of the depth on the defensive line. That is one of the most important storylines for Oregon going to Penn State next weekend. Now, I hate to do it, but this is kind of just turning into a Penn State preview. But you take an early look at Penn State and say, what do they do really well? Run the football. Look, I don't think Penn State's going to have a ton of success throwing on this Oregon secondary. Drew has not looked very good to start the year. I'm not sure if they fixed their problems at wide receiver. They got to replace a guy like Tyler Warren. I'm not all that concerned about Penn State cutting up this Oregon secondary. In fact, I really like that matchup for Oregon. What I am concerned about is that's a really good Penn State offensive line that wants to run the football in a lot of different ways, and they want to run the football a lot. We're going on the road playing Penn State. Do we have enough bodies we can rotate in that game for 4 quarters, stay fresh, and continue to stop the run? Got to see it from Tyone Gray. Got to see it from Terrence Green. Got to see it for Aiden Breland. Feel like this is a big game to get some confidence with that unit before we go on the road and play Penn State. Now, one positive here, at least the way I look at it, is your second and third level defenders have shown they can help stop the run, right? You look at a guy like Aaron Flowers. I mean, he is playing downhill, really physical. I believe he led that team in tackles last week against Northwestern. Your backers are playing really well too. So you have parts about this football team that can take some pressure off that run defense. But I still firmly believe if you want to get over the hump and win a national championship, I think that defensive line needs to show me they're a little bit deeper than what they've shown the first couple of weeks. And that's, you start look, you got a checklist of things that you look for in national championship caliber teams. Man, Oregon's checking about as many boxes as anybody else in the country, right? That depth on the defensive line, which I think is an important box, we still got to see get checked. And I think the on the road against Penn State going to tell us where this Oregon defensive line is. On the offensive side of the football, I know DeCorian Moore got banged up in practice yesterday. Not all that. I mean, it sounds like it's not that serious. And if DeCorian Moore is banged up and not 100%, there's no need to play him against Oregon State. I don't think you're too concerned about having DeCorian. You don't need DeCorian Moore to beat Oregon State. Heck, you could probably just play with tight ends. You probably going to beat Oregon State. What do you want to see from the offense? I want to see them continue to do what they've been doing. Run the football extremely effectively on first and second down. Get a lot of different playmakers involved. Get a lot of different playmakers involved in space. What I want to see maybe the most is kind of narrowing in, all right, what players do we like the most? We've had 3 to 4 games to really get a feel for where our offensive talent is around Dante Moore. Who are the best guys? Who are the guys that we have to make a priority to get the football to every single week? Because there's been a lot of rotation. Like, to me, the names that have emerged, like DeCorian Moore, 100%, Malik Benson, 100%, Jeremiah McClellan, certainly a guy that should be rotated in, as is Gary Bryant, then Kenyon Sadiq and Jamari Johnson. You got a laundry list of running backs. I'm kind of interested to see how the running back depth shakes out as well. You're looking for, on offense, just zeroing in, dialing in on your favorite playmakers, the guys that you want to get the football to in the biggest moments. Everything else, I just want to see everything else just continue as is, because this is an offense that what makes them so special is they can beat you in so many different ways. They can run the football right at you, If you want to put bodies in the box, they can beat you vertically. If you want to try to prevent the big play, they can beat you underneath. Dante Moore has shown the ability to stay patient and just get the football to his playmakers underneath. How do you stop this Oregon? If Oregon continues to play the way they are, how do you stop this Oregon offense? I don't know. If you can't, I mean, it's hard to stop the run. It's hard to get after the passer. It's a very hard offense to deal with. I just want to see that continue. We'll close it out there. That's what I'm looking for. That's kind of the way I'm looking at this game. How can we continue to get better? Take that step, player best football going on the road to playing Penn State. We'll close it out. Appreciate you guys rocking with it. If y'all do enjoy the content, consider subscribing to the channel, and we'll talk to y'all later.